Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 2020 Virtual Candidate Forums. If you're on social media, please hit the share button and help all your friends see today's discussion as well. I am William Hatfield. I'm the editor of the Tallahassee Democrat, and I will be today's moderator. I'd like to introduce Kim Dressel from the League of Women Voters of Tallahassee, our partner in these forums. Kim?
Hello, everyone.
It also seems like we may have just lost one of the candidates. Going to ask Randy backstage if she can try to figure out that 2020 mystery. I was just about to tell everybody that before we get started, it is 2020, which means anything that can go wrong will go wrong, including disappearing candidates, disappearing moderators. We have seen all of these things. We've managed to adapt, and we'll do it again today. We ask that you bear with us through any technical difficulties we may have. We are here today with the candidates for Superintendent of Schools. Rocky Hanna, who is the incumbent and has no party affiliation, and Dr. Pam Hightower, the Democratic candidate. Here is how things are going to work. We will rotate which candidate gets to answer each question first, so everybody will have plenty of chances to answer the first question. We'll have a lot of questions, so we're going to ask the candidates to keep your answers short. It'll be 90 seconds, sometimes shorter if we tell you otherwise. I will be keeping time. I have a bell which I will ding when your time is up. Sounds like this. You don't have to come to a dead stop right then, but please finish your sentence and we're going to keep moving on. In the middle of the forum, we will also have a lightning round where we ask that you keep your answers to just one sentence. Some candidates have a tougher time than others with this. I obviously do accept, compound sentences with ands and because, but ideally we don't want run-on sentences because all the teachers listening in will not approve. If you're watching on social media and you have questions for the candidates, you can type them into the comments and we'll get to as many of them as we can. Please only ask questions that we can ask both candidates. Any questions, candidates, before we begin, or we are going to jump right in?
Ready to go.
Let's do it.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Well, Superintendent Hanna, we're going to start with you. On today's front page of the Tallahassee Democrat is a story about how schools are open. And so far, we haven't seen a large surge in hospitalizations or in transmissions to the older segments of the population. What is your assessment of what we are seeing right now in Leon County schools? What's going well? What needs to be done better? A minute and 30 seconds on this first question.
First, William, thank you and the League of Women Voters for having us today for this very important discussion. First, I need to correct you. I do have a party affiliation. I'm a registered Democrat, have been my entire life. I just don't believe there's any place for partisan politics in the superintendent of schools race and have chosen to run with no party affiliation. We don't have R's and D's in our school system. We have C's, and those are the children we serve. To answer your question, I'm very proud of how we've reopened our schools. We did a lot of work on the front end over the course of the summer, our school administrators, our teachers, to make sure we were reopening our schools safely. There were naysayers out there that thought that we couldn't do it, that we couldn't pull it off, that we would add to community spread, and that hasn't happened. We're now in the 5th week of school, but a lot of credit goes to our school administrators and our teachers, and really, most importantly, to our parents and students. There were people that said that our students, our seniors in high school wouldn't respect mask rules, and our kindergartners, there's no way they'll keep fidgeting with them. Over the last 3 weeks, I've been to every school in over 150 classrooms, and nothing's further from the truth. Our kids at every level at every school are wearing masks and being respectful of those requirements that we've put in place to first keep everyone safe. That's job one. Is it different? Yes. Is this different? This forum is completely different. But right now we have 15,000 students that are remoting into their classrooms. My wife, Christy, a middle school science teacher, has 12 kids in the class and 12 kids that remote in. It is different, but we are making our way through, and I'm very proud of the way we've reopened. And so far, so good, but we closely monitor every classroom in every school every single day, working side by side with the Leon County Department of Health.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, same question.
That question?
Same question.
Okay. That's with what has gone well and what I would change in the reopening of the plan. I think when we reopened, we should have been more inclusive to include everyone in the decision making, from our teachers, parents, administrators. Should have all been included on the front end of this to alleviate some of the problems that I'm getting every time I get a phone call. I'm hearing from teachers, from parents, and especially I watched the school board meeting, and the morale and the teachers are very concerned about some of the safety issues, as well as some promises that have been made to them that they didn't follow through on. Likewise, the computers, I'm getting many calls and concerns that many of the computers are not working. The internet is not working. Some of the things that's what I'm hearing from parents. What I would have done differently, I would have made sure that we included all of our stakeholders up front, to include our parents, include our teachers, include our administrators, so that we would have had a broad spectrum of all the needs of our school. And moving from that, we would have given the task force a framework to address the needs of all of our schools and all of our disciplines. And when that framework would have been given to them, they would have used that as a framework to guide their work. I would have not started school I would have started the first 2 weeks with all of our students at home, learning at home. That way it would have given us 2 weeks to see where the glitches were. The next thing I would have done, I would have given the laptops so the students at home, kept the big ones at school that the parents are having so many problems, where we have tech cons that can address those problems. And the last thing I would have done is look at the human resources part of it that impacted us losing 36 teachers because of health issues, that we could have maybe accommodated those issues up front. Those are some of the things I would have done differently.
Thank you. And we're going to be talking a lot about the coronavirus in schools. And you just brought up the laptops. And, the next question I wanted to ask on that, actually,
William,
it's the League of Women.
have to respond to each other, or
Sure, you can have 30 seconds to respond, Superintendent.
Yeah, so I'd like to say, look, we had multiple groups and committees that met over the course of the summer. We had a reopening task force that had the head of the Leon County Teachers Association, head of the local 1010, LESPA, community members, school administrators. So, I take exception to that. We weren't listening to people. We were absolutely listening to people. As far as not reopening our schools, the governor and the commissioner—
We're having bad connection. I'm not hearing the question.
Had to be open by the end of August, or we were faced severe financial penalties. So our schools had to be open.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Hightower, can you hear us? No. (2020).
Stay positive, William. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. Stay positive.
Dr. Hightower, can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
All right, good. Well, the next question is for you. And you brought up laptops with 16,500 Chromebooks set to arrive any day. What are the plans, or what should the plans be for all students to have access to computers and the internet for virtual learning during COVID-19?
When those 16,000 arrived in Tallahassee, I think those students who were given the big Dell computers that they have at home should get those computers first, because I know that I'm experiencing the problems that they're experiencing with them. Likewise, when you're living in a small apartment and you got 3 or 4 kids with a big computer, it takes up space. And also, I think some of the issues with that parents are having, trying to maintain, trying to learn that system, especially on computers that are running very, very slow, or not being able to access those at all. So the first thing would be is to give those computers to the families that are at home, and next to provide some staff development for those parents. They need help, they need assistance with those. How do we do that? We're going to have to do it virtually, so that in the afternoons, providing those workshops. I know that the districts that they have some, but also going out into our community, in our churches, in our community centers, and providing those small hubs or workshops so that parents can get that hands-on, just like we're doing in school with the social distance and the mask, because I think that is a huge problem. I take care of my little granddaughter where I do her classes every day, and it's big for me. And I know for parents, grandparents who are having to do this while parents work, it's a heavy lift for them.
Thank you. Superintendent, same question.
Well, a couple of things. First, why did we distribute desktops to those students that were at home? Because those students we knew were going to be at home at least for the first quarter of the school year. Other students, as they had to quarantine and move back and forth in and out of school, we wanted to have them mobile, more flexible, and that's why we distributed our mobile devices to the kids that were in school. I'm very proud of the efforts that we made over the course of the summer. We've distributed nearly 9,000 desktops, 9,000 dongles, a wireless device that plugs into the computer, 9,000 webcams. The first week of the call center, we had running just about 24 hours a day. And those calls now have trickled to a very, very slow number. We only have 2 people working the help desk now. So I'm not receiving the vast number of the calls that Dr. Hightower is for some reason. I was asked as to why the computers. Why didn't we order the computers in April? Why did we wait until June 1st? Well, in April, we had a stay-at-home order for the governor. We had no idea the financial impact that was going to have on our school system. Job 1 for me is school safety. Job 2 is to protect the financial resources we had. Once we realized in May that we could pull this off, that we could go one-to-one and be a game changer for our district, we ordered those computers as soon as we knew we would have the financial resources to pay for them without going into debt. I'm proud of the efforts we've made. We're going to have a pilot at one of the middle schools rolling out here in the next week and a half. Then we will distribute those other 16,500 devices to Title I schools and non-Title I schools. And but in the meantime, I'm very proud of the work we put forth, opening our schools, given the circumstances. And then you can do one of two things: you can whine and complain about it, or you can step up. And I think we stepped up.
And I want to apologize. I actually jumped in on the league's question and asked it. So that was the league's question. They will be asking questions directly as we go along. Staying on this topic of Chromebooks, Superintendent, $10.5 million on Chromebooks, obviously a very large expenditure. How should or is the district saving money elsewhere to pay for that? Mr. Superintendent. Uh-oh. Mr. Superintendent, can you hear me?
Sure, if that.
Now we can hear you. Mr. Superintendent, you there?
I am. So you want to try and quickly ask the question?
Surely. All right. $10.5 million on Chromebooks, obviously a very large expenditure. How should or is the district saving money elsewhere to pay for that?
Well, look, I'm very proud of the fact that we've reduced capital debt by over $60 million in the last 4 years. I told you I'm a registered Democrat, but when it comes to fiscal responsibility, I'm very conservative. We've reduced capital debt by $60 million. We've increased our emergency reserve by $2 million. We've eliminated a lot of what I consider wasteful spending out here in Never Never Land on Pensacola Street, pushed those resources down into our schools and into the classrooms. We have not acquired any new debt moving forward. So that made us, in a financial standpoint, able to make this purchase. It's about $2.5 million a year over the course of 4 years. We honestly should have done this years ago. This pandemic forced our hand, but I'm excited. This is going to be a game changer that every student at every school at every level will have the exact same learning device. It's something we should have done years ago, and I'm very proud of it.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, same question.
Yes, I think it's great that all of our students are going to have the same device whenever they do arrive in Tallahassee. And I go back to what Superintendent Hanna said about the calls that I'm getting, but I'm also listening to every school board meeting as I see teachers coming to the board every week, every other week when we have board meeting with some of the same concerns. When I talk to teachers who are having the same concern coming to the board because they still need professional development, or parents are not able to get on, or students are not able to log on. So those issues exist whether we have a Chromebook or not. So now back to your question, the $10.5 million that we're putting in this, I think it's a great investment, and it's over a 4 year that we're doing this. The money, we have money from the COVID. We're going to have to look at all of our resources. When I get in, I will look at the budget. This is something that has already been designated, and it's a good way to spend our money to make sure going forward, because I think the computers is going to be the wave of the future for our students. But we must have programs, great proven programs to make sure. Just having a device but not having research-based programs to make sure that all of our students are learning is just giving us a device, giving me a car but no wheels on it. So let's make sure that we're putting programs on those computers that our students can learn and grow.
Thank you, Dr. Hightower. And staying on this topic of the of digital kind of learning, do you feel the students working in the digital academy are getting the same education as students in school? Besides the equipment itself, what improvements still need to be made in this two-pronged education approach? And Dr. Hightower.
I think The first thing I think is going to be, as I talk to different teachers and different administrators, the first piece is the professional development. Right now, we've been in school 4 weeks. I think we have to do a temperature check. Where are we? What do we need to readjust right now? This is a moving target. No one knew, like we said, we don't have a playbook for this. So we've got to make sure we have a plan. We have to follow our plan, but we have to have checkpoints along the way. And when those checkpoints tell us that we have to readjust, so we need to make sure we're looking at what our students are saying, assessing and monitoring as we go along and making those adjustments. Our teachers are doing this. They're on the front line. They're telling us what they need. Let's listen to them and make those adjustments and give them what they need so that our students can learn and grow, because the great teacher is what's going to make the difference. There's a superintendent. We set the tone for what happened, but what actually happens in the classroom. When the rubber meets the road is in the classroom with the curriculum and instruction.
Thank you. Superintendent Hanna, same question.
Yeah, first, let me do a follow-up on the financial responsibility. In addition to reducing capital debt by $60 million, I have Leon County Schools on a trajectory to be completely 100% debt-free by 2028. And I'm very proud of that. So hopefully whoever's next will continue along those lines of being financially responsible. Look, a lot has changed since we went home last March. Where we are today versus where we were in April, it's light years difference. But that was a lot of hard work, a lot of professional development. Teachers gave up their summers. They weren't paid over the summers, but a lot of them were digging in to the new curriculum we purchased, a new learning management system of Canvas, the new devices, working with the digital academy kids in the hybrid model and kids in class. Again, my wife is a 6th grade teacher. 50% of her kids are in class, 50% are at home. As a pedagogy, is it perfect? No, it's not. It is not. Do I recommend we continue this in the future? No, I do not. Nothing is better than brick and mortar, face-to-face instruction, where our teachers can lay eyeballs on kids and kids can lay eyeballs on their teachers. I get it. This is making the very best we can in a very challenging situation. We basically propped up 2 independent school systems, one with 15,000 kids in school and one with 15,000 kids at home. Is it perfect? No, but I tell you what, it's a heck of a lot better than it was just 5 months ago, and I'm really proud of that. And that's a lot of work on our administrators and our teachers.
Thank you. Superintendent, you kind of brought up the idea of obviously preferable being brick and mortar. So that begs the question, when should Leon County and or the state mandate that students return in person? This is a 1-minute answer.
No, I don't see that anytime in the near future. I dare not say even this school year. And that's, one thing we've given our parents and families choices and options that best fit them. Where are they? And we are meeting them in that space. If they feel good about kids coming back, God bless you. Send them back to school and we'll educate them there. If you don't, maybe you have underlying health conditions in your house with an elderly person or someone else in home, then we'll bring the classroom to you. We've opened up the window again for the second 9 weeks. We're going quarter by quarter. We also have to be aware of the emergency order by the governor and the commissioner that all schools will be open brick and mortar 5 days a week for those who want to attend. We're opening that window again to kind of get a temperature check again. And if kids want to return, we're going to welcome them on November the 3rd when we start the second 9 weeks. But we made these plans well in advance. We're prepared to welcome everyone back. We're prepared to send everyone home again. And we're prepared, like we are right now, to be in the middle. That's why all this hard work was done on the front end, and we're reaping the benefits on the back end.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, same question.
Same question. We would have to follow the guidelines from the CDC. The infectious rate, look at the positivity rate in our district is what will guide my decision as superintendent, making sure we're following the guideline from the CDC. And that all students should be in school when it's safe to do so. We want our students back in school, but we don't want to jeopardize our families. We don't want to jeopardize our teachers, our staff. We want them to return when it's safe to do so. And we would definitely follow the guidelines of the CDC.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, what is your message to parents and teachers who think we as a district should have stood up to the state to keep things completely virtual? And this is a 1-minute answer.
Okay, 1 minute. As I said earlier, I would have started school with us all being at home, which would have taken care of that first 2 weeks. And then we could have gone back and given those parents that option, because parents have a choice and they would have had that choice, both choices, either to do virtual or brick and mortar. But I would have started at home first to get out some of the kinks that we were having with our computers. We would have all been online and then moved to brick and mortar or whatever hybrid model the parents chose. They needed that choice.
And what about the state penalties? The state even kind of inferred that it might.
A penalty because we would have made the deadline just as Leon County did. Then we would have started on time just like we did. We would have made that deadline and then gone back to the brick onto the online. giving parents a choice. We would have started as the state required us to do so, and by the 31st, and then we would have gone back had we had to go back to the brick and mortar or digital, however.
Thank you. Superintendent Hanna, same question.
No, I think we made the right decision, but a lot of that was, again, conversations with multiple stakeholders, along with the Leon County School Board. I'm not the governor and I'm not the commissioner. I wasn't going to test them and risk the financial stability of our schools district well into the future to call their bluff. We should have reopened. There were thousands of parents that were counting on us reopening our schools that needed to get back to work, that needed, some semblance of normalcy for their child. We've given those students and families options and choices. Then they decide what's best for them. But for us just to close the doors to everyone, I think that would have been a mistake. And I think the school board agrees with that. But we have done this in a safe, I think we've proven now, we have done this in a safe manner where we're socially distanced. Our kids are abiding by the mask rules. We are following the guidelines of the CDC and hand in hand with the Leon County Health Department. But we should have reopened it. We've been held captive by this virus for far too long. We need to push back, but to do it in a safe way, in a responsible way. And then if we see as a community that things were changing and the virus was spreading, then we can always go back home. But we don't know unless we try. And I'm proud of our efforts.
Thank you. All right. We are now turning things over to the League of Women Voters.
So a lot of students are in Digital Academy for classroom instruction. What plans are in place, or what plans should be in place, or what improvements could we make sure are being pursued so that students are having access to free or reduced meals if they're eligible, and to make sure that that access is easy for them? And the question first goes to you, Mr. Hanna.
So I was at Fairview Middle School just 3 hours ago, rolling out a pilot program at Bond and Pineview, and using our school buses to go around during the middle of the day when kids are at lunch. So we first opened up, and that was a concern of ours. We opened up our schools every day for drive-through, but we weren't having the success that we had hoped because it was hard for parents who may not have a vehicle to get to the schools to pick up the food. So again, Leon County Schools being creative and thinking outside of the box and solving a need, which is getting food to our children. We are now doing a pilot program that started today at Bond and Pineview. We'll move the pilot forward. We're using school buses to go to their school bus stops. So as kids, and they're on their lunch break in the Digital Academy, come out of their house, they walk to their school bus stop, they get their breakfast and their lunch, and they return home. So it's working those schedules out, again, being as creative and as flexible as we possibly can, but also understanding that unfortunately 50% of the children in our community are food deprived, and that's unacceptable. And part of our job and responsibility as a school system is to feed our kids, to make sure they're nourished. Again, grateful to Second Harvest. We've upped our backpack program by 5,000 units per week. That means 5,000 more children take food home on the weekends to carry them through until Monday. But we're very proud of that partnership as well.
Thank you. Ms. Hightower.
Yes, I'd like to go back to the other question. I never said I wouldn't open school. I said I will follow the guidelines of the CDC. That's what I said. I did not say I wouldn't open school and put the district in jeopardy of losing money, but making sure that our families were safe. Now, I worked in a Title I school for the last 20 plus years. And I know that our students are food deprived, as well as some other issues that they're having. And I think it's complimentary that the superintendent has started that bus today and started that pilot, because many of the students, as he said, live in the country, live in the areas. Their parents are at work, and they're having to cross major streets to get to the school and could not get there. So I commend them for opening that up today and making sure that all of our students are fed, whether they're at the school site or living in that community and can't walk. So having those buses is what I would have done. Is the same as have those buses go into the community where our boys and girls live. So kudos to the superintendent and the school board for starting that today.
Dr. Hightower, we have a question from our audience in Facebook land, and they ask, what plans are there to create outdoor classrooms in each school so there's less risk of COVID transmission? What do you think of that idea, Dr. Hightower?
I think it's a great idea. I saw with one student, I think from one of the middle school, has started that at a couple of our schools. I think that's a great idea. I was talking to a teacher last night, and she was talking about how hard it is to wear a mask all day and having the breaks and even taking them off and still having the kids. Some kids are coughing. I think we need that outside classroom at all of our schools so that our children and our teachers can take those breaks and go outside. And until we get those, we as the leaders have to create those opportunities, be it under the covered area or someplace where our students can get outside and get that break during the day.
Thank you. Superintendent.
Yeah, so our teachers and our school administrators are being creative at every level. to make this as comfortable as for our students in school as we possibly can. The mask thing it's not comfortable. So in order to get those kids outside, get them moving, and make sure they have recess, make sure they have physical education and physical activity, to give them mask breaks, to look at the idea of outdoor classrooms. Our teachers are being so creative, not only with the delivery of instruction and learning every day the new technology and new delivery methods, but also finding creative ways for our kids to social distance, but to make their lives much more comfortable while they're physically in school.
Thank you. Another question on that, on kind of the contingency planning. Are there any plans to upgrade HVAC systems in schools to improve indoor air quality as a method of reducing risk of COVID transmission? Superintendent Hanna.
Man, I tell you, we did so much work on the front end to ensure that our employees had the PPE they needed. We had a group of ladies that made over 5,000 H600 masks, the same medical grade quality masks as being worn in our hospitals. We've had face shields, we've had smocks and all kinds of things to get to our employees to keep them as safe as we possibly can. When it comes to upgrading HVAC units, we did what we thought was practical and reasonable. We have ionization projects going on. We did all of Gretchen Everhart, which is a special needs school, to take care of that community first. And then in every one of our school cafeterias and our gyms and our main office and clinics, we're doing ionization. We're adding ionization units, which basically makes the molecules a little larger, so they'll attach to the vent into the filter. And we've upgraded the filters that we have to make sure that the molecule size is increased, so it'll attach to the filter, because the COVID molecule is very small. But we have made efforts along those lines. But we want to do it something. We just want to throw money hand over fist at something that wouldn't work. But
Thank you.
These ionization projects will work in those large areas.
Dr. Hightower, same question. What do you think of HVAC upgrades? I think that is necessary. I've been asked several of the teachers have mentioned that's not something that they have. I think with some of the COVID money that we got, that should have been a priority for our schools, especially in some of our older schools. But that should have been a priority for our schools, using some of those funds to make sure we have that, because it say they can travel through the air conditioning vents. So if that's the case, and we've got classes, and especially some of the older schools in those parts, we have 4 classes in a room, that is a real concern. So I think some of those funds should have been spent on that on the front end.
Thank you. All right, we're going over to the League of Women Voters for the next question, and we are kind of done with our COVID portion of discussions. Kind of, because it always comes back.
Okay, so this question will first go to you, Ms. Hightower.
Sure.
What is your opinion of school vouchers in charter schools, and do you support the expansion of charter schools?
Yes, I do not support the expansion of charter schools, but I do go back to what I would like to do is make sure that all of our schools are schools of distinction, where parents would want to bring the students, putting programs in so we don't lose children to private or charter schools. As a Title I director, I had a revelation when I became a Title I director, and realized that the money follows the child. So if a child leaves us and go to a charter or private school, the money, if that school so chooses, the money will go with that child. So that is not something that the superintendent nor I can control. It follows the child. Now, do I support taking money from the public school for charter schools? I do not. I have been a public school employee all of my life. But in those situations where the law dictates that the money follows the child, we have no other choice but to do that.
Thank you. And Mr. Hanna.
Yeah, someone mentioned they heard that I was anti-school choice and they were going to bring school choice back to our public schools. Nothing is further from the truth. I am pro-school choice. What I did coming in was level the playing field, because prior practice was if you were coming out of a charter school or a private school, you got automatic choice into one of our traditional schools. But if you were a public school kid like William Hatfield, if his kids wanted to go to a different school, those kids were getting passed over by kids coming out of private schools. That to me was unacceptable. So I leveled the playing field. But I am pro-school choice. I am not, however, for the reckless expansion of charter schools and private school vouchers. I've been outspoken from the very beginning. We stood up to 2 charters that we're going to open here in Tallahassee. Once they've been accepted, fine, we'll welcome them with open arms to help our children. But I've been a vocal opponent of both reckless charter expansion and private school vouchers. To me, it doesn't make any sense. If we have to ask permission from the Department of Education in order to build a new school, and they look at our existing capacity. If we have existing capacity, the answer is no, you can't build a new school. And I understand that. It makes sense. It was already funded with taxpayer dollars. But then if a charter school comes right after us, we have existing capacity. Charter schools are granted the application. That to me makes no sense whatsoever. And as far as private school vouchers, us sending money to private schools that don't have the same assessments, the teacher certifications and all the things, the accountability levels that we're held to, it just doesn't make sense and it's dead wrong.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, more than a year after what was dubbed, I think by you, as a colossal failure of the bus system on the first day of school, what are the takeaways from that experience?
Well, as you can see, here's 2020, William, and our buses ran perfect the first day of school this year. So, you know, it was a lesson learned for me. Our transportation department runs in about $7 or $8 million in the red every year. There is a lot of room for improvement. We had already been contracted with a company back in 2008 that predates me that had the ability, so they claim, to enhance our routing system, to cut down on the number of routes we have, and then through attrition, the number of drivers to become more efficient. The company overpromised and underdelivered, but at the end of the day, I'm the superintendent. The buck stops here. I took responsibility. I apologize for those that were affected. We immediately made corrections and moved on, but it was certainly a lesson learned. And the next time, you know, we need to move slower before we move fast. But those are some inefficiencies that we're going to address in the future.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, same question.
Back to the school choice, we were talking about school vouchers in private school. School choices, when I think about school choice, I'm talking about the current policy that, since the superintendent brought it up, we changed the way with students are can have a choice to go to a school, to a lottery system, and 95% of our schools have for the students who live in that school zone. Now, I want to bring, when I say school choice, when he's talking about school choice in that sense, I want to go back and look at that. So we're talking about human beings who need to have a choice, sometimes to have a different environment. Now, let's talk about the bus situation. What I would have done, I would have tested that system, and I would have listened to the people who were on the front line, our bus drivers, our maintenance people, our bus drivers, and our supervisors who are telling us that this is not going to work. So I think going forward, we need to always listen to the people who are on the front line. And in that situation, I don't think we listen. And I understand the superintendent, he did apologize and move forward, but that's what happens when we don't listen and take everybody's opinion into consideration.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, schools in Leon County remain very segregated, leading to a greater disparity of achievement between schools. Do you believe this is a significant problem in Leon County schools, and how do you address it?
When I saw that question, when it came to League of Women, I had to go back and look at that, because I said I have worked predominantly in the last 20 years. I started at Cologne Lace, but when working in schools, yes, how do we address that? We're going to have to go back and look at the many factors that contribute to segregation of our schools. History has played a significant part in that, largely based because of zoning and housing. And so those same institutional practices has created segregation, requiring our students to send to school in which they live close to their home zone. Many neighborhoods have changed over the years, so families have moved out, which further put pressure on the segregation, which further exacerbate the segregation. I plan to address that issue when I become superintendent by first getting input from our stakeholders, from our school, and from our community, and examining the school choice. What impact has that had on segregation when students don't have a choice, that they have to stay in the school zone in which they're living? I want to develop a plan with all of our stakeholders, including our parents and our teachers and our clergy and all of our community members, that we develop a plan to address those needs so that students can give a chance if they need a different environment or need a different type of learning setting.
Thank you. Superintendent Hanna.
Unfortunately, our community is somewhat segregated already. And for our schools, the thing I appreciated the most about being principal of Leon High School was the diversity we had. The northern boundary of the school zone was Ox Bottom. The southern boundary was Orange Avenue. Imagine all the neighborhoods that are encompassed, and those kids coming together. It was a beautiful thing to see. And I wish all of our schools, and my goal is for all of our schools to look exactly like that, for those schools' populations to represent what Leon County looks like. Unfortunately, I think prior school choice practices led to let's call it what it is, led to white flight. And we had a number of our schools that were losing students because of the favoritism that was shown and other practices. Since I did away with that, we've gone to a lottery system that's fair and equitable for everyone. enrollment at Rickards High School is at an all-time high. When I took office, they were less than 1,200 students. Now they're around 1,700 students in a very diverse population. The same at Godby High School. Godby's High School is enrollment is on the increase, and the number of white children staying at Godby High School is on the increase. So I've been very concerned with this issue. So has the school board, but not only concerned, we've taken action. We've revised our school choice practices to make them fair and equitable for everyone, and reimagining our schools. And we're doing capital projects at Rickards and Fairview because those schools have been neglected for far too long. And now we have about a $60 million project that's totally transforming both of those campuses. And is it the site of the school that makes a difference? No, the school is brick and mortar. But it goes a long way for a child feeling good about where they're going to school, just like they do their home.
Mr. Superintendent, staying on this topic, I mean, what is one thing you can do going forward to, change that trajectory as the superintendent?
Continue down the changes we made with school choice and make school choice equitable. And you're going to go to and quit overcrowding our overcrowded schools already. We were sending more kids to Gilchrist and then sending portables because they were wanting to leave other schools in the community. The practices were just wrong. And I brought that to an end. Now, I took a lot of criticism. Even a cousin of mine, I said, no, you can't go to Leon High School. You don't live in the zone. Leon's already overcrowded. I can't go to Easter Sunday anymore at my cousin's house, but that's just part of it. What's fair for one is fair for everyone, whether it's a family member of mine or, to me, that was the right thing to do. And we're seeing the impact it's having in our schools as we're starting to drive those numbers back in a positive direction.
Dr. Hightower, same question. What is one thing you could do as superintendent going forward to change that trajectory?
I would make sure that we're looking at all the factors that go into a school. The most important thing is to make sure that our students are learning and achieving at a high level. So making sure that we have academic programs in place. The building must look good, but we must have academic programs in place so that we can change the school, what people think of the school. I've had people come to Bond who, when they got there, loved Bond, but had never put foot on that campus. It's a brand new campus. So making sure we are telling the stories of all of these schools. But we got to go back and look and give parents choices. I sat and watched a parent come to the school board who had a situation with she'd adopted some children and moving in past the choice date. We've got to know that we're dealing with human beings, and there have to be some exceptions. And they made all of that before that decision was made.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, one last question, and then we're going to go back to the League of Women Voters here. What is your comfort level with how the diversity of Leon County schools, staff, and teachers match the diversity of the community?
That is a real problem right now, especially for African-American males. That's, as a principal, we tried hard to find African-American teachers, especially male teachers, but making sure the population represent what the school looks like. As a principal, that was one of my focal points. As a district, we used to always, when we advertised the position, they would send us, this is what your school population look like. You have this many minority teachers, this many male. So as you're hiring, you are aware of that. I think it matters who we put in front of our students. They need role models that look like them. So it's really important that we are putting teachers and administrators in front of them that look like them. I know as a principal, some of the people that I work with, this is something we've talked about for a long time, is making sure that the students who we serve have people that look like them, teaching them. It matters from the head to all the Leon County. Ethnicity is important. It is essential that we look at all of our students and who we're putting in front of them.
Thank you. Superintendent Hanna.
William, y'all recently did a story where Leon County Schools today ranks #3 in the state in diversity of school administrators. And I'm very proud. I'm very proud of that. Some people talk about the importance of diversity. I think me and the appointments I've made is for school leadership shows the value of the diversity that you're talking about. And I'm very proud that we're #3 in the state of Florida. And notwithstanding the race of these school leaders, they're absolutely the right people, the right place, and the right time. But to your point, we must have the school leadership that represents the school and the community at large. I'm very proud of the fact that we're #3 in the state. Maybe one day we'll climb to first in the state. But it's important to me as I make decisions each and every day to understand not only the cultural diversity that we need, but lots of other issues that take in place so our kids are exposed to a wide variety of school administrators and teachers.
Thank you. And we're going to the League of Women Voters for the next question.
We'll go to you first, Mr. Hanna. What is your position on vocational training in high
Well,
schools?
this is one of my big ones. Early learning, and on the other end, expanding career and technical programs for children that just aren't meant to go to Harvard or Florida State or FAMU. That was a big priority of mine. I immediately named a director, Shelley Bell. We revamped and re-imaged Lively Technical College. We pushed those programs down into our middle schools and high schools to get rid of the stigma that's been attached. That a kid feels like a failure if they don't go to a four-year university. Nothing's further from the truth. We've created partnerships with the local chambers, also with Career Source, with the healthcare community, the Builders Association, to find where are the jobs and then to create programs at Lively Technical College that give kids the skills they need to compete for those jobs. So this and early learning were my two big priorities outside of what we're doing in K-12. We have a lot of work yet to be done, but again, I'm very proud of the efforts we've made over the course of the last several years.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Hightower.
Yes, back to the first question. I'm very proud of the principals and at those schools as well. However, many of those principals were in place prior to our superintendent. If not that person, an African-American principal was in place there in many of those situations already. Back to the question, all of our students are not going to graduate and go to college. They're not going to make college. All of them are not going to college. So we need to make sure that we're preparing them for careers. As I said, I was talking to someone last night, a friend whose son graduated from Charles. He's not going to college. He's a 4.0 student, but he's certified in in welding, and also certified in air conditioning. He's ready to start. He's going to make as much money as some of us make when we retire. So I think it's important that we do that. Likewise, it's important that we increase our graduation rate so we're graduating most students who are ready to go to college should they choose to go so. So we need to look at both aspects, whether they're going to college or going to a career. We just need to make sure that they're graduating from high school at a higher than 59% rate than we currently have the traditional way.
Thank you.
Thank you. We know there's a giant state budget cut coming. If the choice was yours, what people, programs, or services would you cut from the budget? Dr. Hightower.
First, we will make sure we keep the whole classroom harmless. That would be my first priority, to make sure that we have teachers and staff at our school level. Then I would have to look at each program and look at each budget individually. So sitting here telling you what I would have to look at where we could make those cuts, but they would be as far from the classroom as possible. And also to make sure that we are following all the guidelines and make sure that our students are safe. So we would have to make sure that school safety, our academics are first, that our students are learning in a safe environment, the schools are safe, and that students are able to learn at a higher level with a qualified teacher and administrator. So the class will be held harmless.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah, let me go back and clear something up. First of all, Leon County Schools graduation rate is over 93%, fifth highest in the state of Florida. And we play by the same rules that the other 67 counties do. And to say otherwise is disingenuous. I'm very proud of that fact. We'd love to get to 100%. Maybe one day we will. But in the meantime, we're over 93%, fifth highest in the state. The state has also created a path for 18 credit graduates, those kids that wanting to accelerate. For us to be held accountable for those kids, we are held accountable. But to say those shouldn't be included is ludicrous. They absolutely should be included. To your point, we've done a lot of savings over the last 4 years. I increased our emergency reserve by 40%. We've also pulled back district funds to hold in case of the budget reductions we know they're probably looming in the future. We have about a $6 million reserve in addition to our $10 million fund balance. We're positioned in a good place. I told you, financially, I'm very conservative. I protect our kids from harm at school. That's job one. Job two is to protect the financial resources of our school system and to put as many resources as we can in our classroom while also protecting for the future.
Mr. Superintendent, what, obviously schools have become competitive just like everyone else. And, you're competing almost with charters to entice students to kind of sign up. I mean, what can the school district do to attract more students and therefore more funding?
We're in the age of competition. As a former student athlete at Leon High School, I welcome competition. I would put our traditional public schools up against any school in Leon County, charter, private, or otherwise. That's why it's really been hard for charters and privates to survive, because the overall health of our public schools is great. Moving forward, we have a new marketing initiative. We don't tell our story enough. So now we're starting to tell our story. I would tell people, the parents at McClay all the time when they would leave and come to Leon as ninth graders, look, your child's going to get a wonderful experience. They're going to see what real life is like and experience a lot of diversity at the school. And they're going to get a quality education. I'm going to save you a lot of money on car insurance. It's us telling our story to those families. And we have a great story to tell.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, same question.
Yes, could you repeat the question? You went out. I didn't hear all
Sure.
the
The question is, what can the school district do to attract more students and therefore more funding?
The first thing we can do is make sure that we're putting programming in school to attract students. We're saying we want to do a career in college, career ready program. When kids are graduating, we need to offer more programs. I heard the superintendent say that Lively is offering some of those programs there. We need to make sure students are aware of those programs. How do we do that? We tell our story. We have got to tell our story. There are wonderful things. There are some of the best teachers, administrators, staff anywhere in the district. I was out there, I'm in the classroom, I'm in schools. I see that every day when I was at the school last year, in all of the classroom. I will put our teachers and our staff against anyone. We just got to make sure we are telling our stories and that we're improving all schools so that parents will want to send their students to any school in Leon County. It doesn't matter whether we're on the south, west, east, or north side of town, that all of our students, when they go there, will get a high quality education.
Thank you. All right. We have made it to the lightning round. So again, the rules of the lightning round is I'm looking for just one sentence. Again, please include yes and, yes because, but try to keep it to absolutely one sentence, and we're going to keep things moving along. Dr. Hightower, you're going to start us out. Name one specific LCS program that you feel has the biggest impact on kids.
Our curriculum and instruction department, because that's what should be driving our school. It is the hub of our school.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, same question.
Our new Forward Leon program addressing early learning. Those kids are 0 to 5 before they get to kindergarten.
All right. Superintendent, should students be able to wear clothing with what some may consider a controversial message, such as Black Lives Matter?
We have rules in place. If it violates our dress code policy that's approved by the school board, then no. If it's disruptive to school, then no. Otherwise, yes.
Okay. Dr. Hightower, same question.
We have to follow dress code policy. The superintendent just said the district has a dress code policy. We will follow that dress code policy, and anything that's going to cause controversy at the school, we have to make sure that we're not allowing those things to happen.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, what letter grade would you give the governor for his handling of the pandemic and why?
I would give the governor a D on his handling of the pandemic. And why? Is because first thing, I don't think we should have forced schools into going back to school. That should have been an individual decision on when schools went back based on the school in that district and what they're dealing with. So I would give him.
Mr. Superintendent, same question.
I'm not interested in giving the governor a grade. It's easy to sit on the outside on the sidelines and weigh in. It's a lot harder when you're actually in a position of leadership.
All right. Superintendent, should Digital Academy students have to return to the classroom for state testing?
Well, should they have to return to the classroom? I think that's a loaded question. I think we can make exceptions on the weekends and in the evenings and be accommodating to students to make sure they're in a comfortable place for state assessments. If we actually have state assessments in the spring, that's yet to be determined.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, same question.
Yes, we're going to have to make it. We're going to have to make exception for those students to come, just like Leon County does now. For those students who are homeschooled, they come out to the district. They make accommodations for those students to take the test at the district level.
Thank you.
Using the CDC guidelines.
Dr. Hightower, should students be required to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I think the Pledge of Allegiance should be in the classroom, and if a child chooses not to stand, if a parent has that right for the child not to stand, that should be a parent decision. But yes, I think it should be in the classroom every day.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent.
We've dealt with this for many years. This isn't something new, and we make accommodations if the child has the reason not to stand. So we respect the opinions and values of every child.
Mr. Superintendent, if some elective classes have to be eliminated due to budget shortfalls, what is one you might be willing to cut and one that you think is absolutely vital?
Well, again, I'm committed to protect the arts and the arts programs in our schools. They're of vital importance. We've given $1 million more every year to support the arts. I would hate to cut any program. Cuts at the classroom level will be the very last thing we do. I can promise you that.
Dr. Hightower, same question.
It would be hard to cut in just any particular program, but I would make sure that we're maintaining the arts as much as possible and keeping the classroom harmless.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, should students be marked as absent and unexcused for participating in protests?
If a parent chooses for a child to participate, that is a parent's choice, and it's a peaceful protest. I think those are parent choices that they should make. And if that's just like when I grew up, there were protests, and my parents allowed me to participate in those. And so I think, yes, if a parent allows that child should be marked, should be given a chance to make that, and it should not be unmarked absent, because the freedom of speech is allowed to that under the Second Amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, same question.
It's treated no differently, William, than if you wanted to take your kids to Washington, D.C. on a field trip. You as a parent have that prerogative.
All right. Mr. Superintendent, what is one book every student should read?
One book every student should read.
What?
That's a great question as well. I would say To Kill a Mockingbird, because that's one of my favorite books of all time.
All right.
Let's stick with that for now. You caught me off.
Okay. Dr. Hightower?
Coming from an elementary break, mine will be The Places We Go by Dr. Seuss, because I think we can go any place, and that book tells us that we can do anything. So that will be one with my elementary background that I truly enjoy reading. But I think we also need to make sure, another one of my favorites is about Stephen Peterson. You don't know how to teach me. And it's about teaching African-American students.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Hightower, should the school board's Monday agenda review meetings, which oftentimes pulls in, school board members and the superintendent for a pre-meeting meeting, should they be live streamed for the public?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent.
These agenda reviews have been on the books for many years and always canceled. I was the one that brought them back into play. But for the sake of transparency, is the government in the sunshine? Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, what is one innovative or non-traditional teaching practice in use now during the COVID-19 pandemic you would like to see implemented or continued when all students are back in the classroom?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot more blended learning moving forward, that this is going to be a kind of a new way of work, not to this level as we see, but I think blending learning is going to become a big part of what we do and how we deliver instruction.
Dr. Hightower.
I would also like to see us continue with the taping of the classes so that parents can go back and review those and students can get additional help. I want to also like to see the blended learning continue, as that when we started this, I kept asking, why can't we do a blend? And I kept getting, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. I'm so glad we're doing that for those students who need that, because the family at a high school whose daughter needed that at one school and could not get that. So I'm glad that we're doing that.
All right, we've made it through the lightning round, which means we are in the home stretch. We've just got a few more questions, and then it's going to be closing argument time. Legal Women Voters, you got the next question.
Okay, this one will go to you first, Dr. Hightower. What is your position on the importance of arts education, and what are you willing to do to protect it as the budget crunches arrive?
That's a great question. When we built Bond Elementary School, I wanted it to be a performing arts school, because I've done a lot of research on how the arts enhance learning. So I'm very supportive of the arts. That would be the last thing that I would want to cut. As I said, when I go in, you would have to look at the budget and prioritize, but I would try to keep all the classroom held, including the arts. Back in 2008, we had this, and I know then we kept all the classrooms, we kept the arts, and we held them harmless.
Thank you. Mr. Hanna.
People talk about the importance of art education. I think we've shown it. Along with the Leon County School Board of Commission, send an additional $1 million down to support the arts and athletic programs in our schools, because we know how they're vitally important. A lot of the kids, they get in the morning, they come to school because of the arts programs. A lot of them stay in school and graduate because they're so involved in arts and athletic programs. So they are vitally important. And I'm proud that we've been able to send those extra resources into our schools to reduce the cost for parents and families for their children to participate.
Thank you.
we've had several incidents over the past few years of students or staff using racist or racially charged language. What should the role of the schools be in responding to these kinds of incidents, especially if they're happening off campus or on social media? Mr. Superintendent, we'll start with you for 1 minute.
Well, look, we have over 4,500 employees, and we talk to them about the sensitivity, especially now in our country, when it comes to relations. But from time to time, people make poor choices. When you have 4,500, individuals that you work with, and then as superintendent, we discipline accordingly. With our progressive discipline plan, Dina McAllister does an investigation. We see, was there malicious intent or not, and then we discipline those employees appropriately. And if it's a continued pattern, then we'll dismiss the employee. But again, we have zero tolerance when it comes to racial insensitivity and doing things that are unprofessional in a profession when you're leading school children.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, same question.
I think we need to have sensitivity training, and we need to have communication, open communication, especially grade appropriate. At a high school, it may take a totally different look than it would at the middle school and elementary school. But I think communicating and talking about some of the issues that are facing us and having sensitivity training. As I said, once you say something, you can't take it back because you don't know how the other person is going to receive that. So it starts from our superintendent to everyone in between, that we have to set high expectations about what we say and what we do and hold ourselves and everyone accountable. So we want to make sure that all of our employees are following the policies and must be consistent. Whenever that happens, we must be consistent and fair in our punishment, if that's, I hate to use that word, but punishment, but in our handling of those issues. And I just want to go on record of saying that we need sensitivity training at all levels.
Thank you. All right, the League of Women Voters is going to have the last question for us. It's the only thing in the way before closing arguments.
Okay. This question will first go to you, Dr. Hightower. What actions will you take to attract and retain highly qualified teachers?
That's a great question. It's something I'm very passionate about. I will make sure that we're out recruiting our teachers at all the different universities to make sure we bring highly qualified teachers to our district. And the other thing we've got to do is once we get them here, we got to make sure we're retaining them by trying to find the money to make sure we're having our salaries being competitive. Make sure teachers say, if I could just get cheaper insurance, that's like money, that's like a raise, making sure we're giving them some of those amenities that will help to keep them here. I would also, on the long term, like to start a future teacher program in our high schools, where those students can earn credit and possibly graduate with an AA degree and go on to FAMU or Florida State to get their degrees and come back and work within our district. That's long term, but the short term of it is recruiting teachers from all levels of all the different universities all over the country, and then bringing those teachers and giving them the resources that they need so that we can retain those teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Hanna.
Well, look, it's no surprise. We had a teacher shortage crisis well before the pandemic. This has been an issue over the last several years. I remember when I was an administrator, a young administrator in our schools, and we'd have hiring fairs. You'd open the elephant doors at the Civic Center and hundreds of applicants would walk in. Now you open those same doors and there's very few. One, because of all the high stakes testing that we put on our teachers tied to teacher pay. Two is the pay itself. We're going to make a swing at that here in the very near future. The governor has the initiative to move to 47.5 as a beginning teacher. For us, we're going to get halfway there, we think, and then we won't get all the way there. We have an additional $4 million that we're going to add to that. So there'll be a $9 million payback to the teacher to significantly move the needle. Our teachers didn't get into the profession. They knew when they got in, they probably were not going to have a house at St. George Island. But they also have bills to pay and families to support. We have to pay these people better. I don't know of any other profession that you start in $30-something thousand a year that requires a 4-year degree. We have to treat the teachers like the professionals they are. I think they have proven now that our teachers are absolutely essential workers, and we have to treat them with that same professionalism and respect. And money goes a long way of saying how important they are to us.
Thank you. We actually have a bonus question that just came in from the audience, and that is, what is one thing we can do to reduce cyberbullying? Mr. Superintendent, you'll start us on that.
I'd say it starts at home with our parents. We do the best we can as a school system to monitor and to investigate complaints of cyberbullying. but it starts at home. We try to teach our children each and every day to become better citizens. The role of an education is not to have better test takers. It's to have better citizens, to teach them the things that are important to life, to value other people's diversity, other people's opinions. But I think at some point our parents have to step up and work with us and talk to their children about what's appropriate and what's not, and to understand that everyone has feelings in this day and age with these things. It's just disappointing. And not just children. Y'all look at the adults that are on Facebook right now that are saying, just hateful things. And that's disappointing to me. It just breaks my heart to watch it happen. We've become so partisan, so divided as a country. I saw us after 9/11. After 9/11, you were hugging and kissing strangers. You didn't even know we were just like this. And now, 19 years later, something has to change. It has to change with the adults starting at the top.
Thank you. Dr. Hightower, same question.
Hello.
Can you hear us? Same question.
Again?
The question is, what is one thing you can do to reduce cyberbullying?
Okay. One thing we could do to reduce cyberbullying, we had a program that the Sheriff Department put on, and in that program, we taught students about cyberbullying. So education is going to be the key. I know parents, it starts at home with parents, but it's also at school. We have them at school 6-7 hours a day, and we've got to work on that. Educating our students is what it's going to take to change that. And I know that was an excellent program. They did cyberbullying and many other things through that program with our Sheriff Department. The other thing that we got to make sure that we have procedures in place, discipline procedures for dealing with that, and that we're implementing those. Once students know that we're going to implement those, that will also help. I say working with our community members and our parents.
Thank you. All right, y'all made it. It is closing argument time. Dr. Hightower, you get to start. This is your chance to talk directly to voters. You've got a minute and 30 seconds. Feel free to drop your website to allow people to have ways to find more information about you. And Dr. Hightower, you get to start us out.
Yes. As you said, I'm Dr. Pam Hightower, and I am a candidate, the Democratic candidate for the Leon County School Superintendent. I'm passionate about students and staff and all of our employees working in a safe and nurturing environment. I believe that every child, regardless of their zip code, regardless of their socioeconomic status, should have an excellent education. These times calls for a leader who's ready to go in and look at curriculum, to make sure that we have curriculum and instruction in place to close this learning gap that existed before the pandemic, but has been even enlarged since the pandemic. It calls for a leader who's ready to go in on day one to address the whole child, the physical, emotional, social needs of all of the students by having mental health counselors in our schools. We also calls for time that we can go in. It's imperative that we show compassion and passion to our teachers and staff. Our morale is at an all-time low. We've got to make sure we appreciate those teachers and let them know that they're on the front line, from the bus driver who picks them up in the morning and takes them back, and everybody in between. Working together with the school board, the district, and all of our employees, I have been boots on the ground. I'm the candidate who have seen up close and personal the needs of our students. And I believe that my 40 years of experience has enabled me to unify this district and instill trust in our leadership in our schools to move our district forward to becoming a high-performing district in Leon County. I bring hope, helping others provide education. It takes a village. It will be all-inclusive, our parents, our schools, our community, all partnership and relationship. Together we will rise and make Leon County a #1 district. Vote for hope, Dr. Pam Hightower.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, you get to close us out.
First, I'd like to thank you guys for hosting this forum. I can't tell you what an honor it is as a product of our public schools and a lifelong resident of Tallahassee and Leon County to serve as superintendent. Recently, someone asked if I could accomplish one thing during my tenure as superintendent, what would it be? And the answer is simple. It would be the satisfaction of knowing that I made good on the promises I made to our community, and more importantly, the promises I made to our school children, that every decision I made was based on a question: what's in the best interest of children? That's what guides me every single day. 4 years ago, I didn't have a record as a school superintendent, and now I do. And honestly, it's a record I'm very, very proud of. Our schools are safer than ever before. We've poured millions of dollars of resources down into our classrooms. We've increased graduation rates. We've given significant raises to teachers and other support personnel. We opened our first community partnership school at Sable Palm, established a free pre-K all-day program in our Title I schools, completely revamped Lively Technical College. And finally, and most recently, have purchased devices for every child at every school, which will be a game changer well into the future. And finally, now we have safely reopened our school district in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. But let's be clear, this pandemic isn't over and my work is not yet finished. In closing, I have a favor to ask. Before you cast your ballot, go to rockyhanna.com and just take a few minutes there to look at the accomplishments we've made over the last 4 years and listen to some of the testimonials by very respected members of our community. To Dr. Hightower's point, I'm a registered Democrat. This isn't about partisan politics. It's about who's the right person. And I would be honored to have your continued support. So thank you and God bless you.
Well, thank you both. Thank you to everyone out there in Facebook and YouTube and online for joining us today. Our next forum will be at 1 p.m. Thursday. It will be a discussion of the pros and cons of the referendum on the Children's Services Council. As an FYI, you can find a replay of this as well as all of our election coverage at tallahassee.com/elections. You can also find more information at the League of Women Voters website at lwv.org elections/vote411. Also, you'll want to look for our special elections section, which prints this Sunday. It is basically the guide to the ballot that includes all the races, issues, and candidates that you're going to find on that ballot. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you for having us.